I held my hand out, ready to greet the new CEO. And that was all it took for the chairman to decide I didn't belong at his table. He didn't even look at my face first. He looked at my hand, then at the folder under my arm, then at the red roses I was carrying, minus the kind someone's assistant orders when they want the room to look welcoming for a big announcement. The cameras were already rolling. Red light on. 3 angles. One for the internal stream, one for the external investors, one for the archive no one thinks about until there's a scandal. I stepped up beside his chair, extended my hand toward the incoming CEO and said, "Welcome to Thornfield Energy." Before the new CEO could react, the chairman turned his head, took in my gesture, and gave a small scoff into his lapel mic. "I don't shake hands with low-level employees," he said, loud enough to be crystal clear in the room and on every live feed. The reaction was immediate. A couple of board members smirked. Someone halfway down the table did that nervous laugh people do when they know something's wrong but don't want to be the first to admit it. One of the communication staff at the back covered his grin with a folder, like that would somehow hide the expression from the cameras trained directly on us. The new CEO, Adrian Walsh, shifted in his seat and glanced down at the table instead of at my hand. He didn't shake it. He didn't say anything. He didn't correct the chairman. He just looked away. I didn't pull my hand back. Not yet. For a brief second, the chairman seemed bothered by that. His smile faltered a hair. His eyes flicked from my hand to my face, as if he was checking whether I had misunderstood the hierarchy he just announced to the entire world. The roses felt heavier in my arm. "I'm here as instructed," I said, keeping my voice even. He leaned back in his chair without hiding the contempt. "Then stand where you're told," he replied. "This meeting is for executives." Someone near the end of the table muttered, "Awkward," just loud enough for his neighbor to hear and for the nearest mic to catch. I lowered my hand, but on my terms, not his, and placed the roses on the table, just at the edge of his eye line. Then I walked to the empty seat at the far end of the board table and sat down. The laughter lingered a second longer, thinner now, stretched over the silence that followed. "Let's begin," the chairman said, already turning toward the main screen at the front. The first slide appeared. Logo, date, Thornfield Energy merger finalization and capital structure completion. I waited. Let them get through the title. "Before you go further," I said, "there's one thing you should know." The chairman's head turned back toward me slowly, like I just interrupted a sermon. "We're not taking commentary from staff during this session," he said. His tone carried that same amused cruelty. I met his eyes. "If you're refusing to shake my hand," I said, still calm, still level, "then by tomorrow morning, $2.1 billion will no longer be part of this deal." The silence hit harder than the laughter had. It wasn't disbelief. It was a vacuum. Then, predictably, someone laughed a little too loudly. "Okay," a board member said. "That's enough." Another chimed in, almost relieved. "All right, let's keep this professional." The chairman's smile came back, brittle. "Sit down," he said. "We're behind schedule." "I already am," I replied. They had no idea yet. They would, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and explain how a guy they thought was a low-level errand runner ended up being the one person in that room who could make or break the largest funding round in the company's history. My name is Lawrence Sullivan. I'm 48 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I was the managing partner of a private equity firm called Horizon Capital. If you've never heard of us, that's deliberate. We don't advertise. We don't sponsor conferences. We don't slap our name on stadiums. We move quietly, write large checks, and expect 2 things in return: discipline with our money, respect for the conditions under which we give it. Thornfield Energy was supposed to be our flagship deal. $2.1 billion in committed capital structured over multiple tranches, tied to a high-profile merger they wanted to turn into a PR event. To them, this was about a headline. To us, it was about risk. I didn't always sit on this side of the table. For 15 years, I worked in corporate finance and energy sector mergers and acquisitions for a Fortune 500 industrial group. My job was simple on paper and brutal in practice. Keep us funded, keep us compliant, keep the rating agencies from turning us into a case study of what not to do. I saw up close what happens when capital is treated like an entitlement instead of a responsibility. I saw executives smile in your face and quietly shift your risk rating 2 notches down because your CEO couldn't stop running his mouth on earnings calls. I watched deals fall apart because someone in a position of power decided humility was beneath them. My father used to say something that stuck with me long after he was gone: money doesn't change people, it just makes it easier to see who they already were. After one too many strategic refinancings that were really just emergency life support, I walked away. That was 8 years ago. I took what I knew about capital structures, risk covenants, and how executives think, or don't think, under pressure, and started Horizon Capital. The pitch was straightforward. We write big checks. We stay out of your day-to-day operations, but the cost of that freedom is very specific behavior when it matters. We built our reputation on a simple principle. Don't be stupid with other people's money. Don't be cruel with the people who keep your company alive. Don't treat accountability like an optional feature. Thornfield Energy entered our orbit during their consolidation phase. They were a mid-tier energy company that had been buying up regional players without considering integration costs. Good assets, decent market position, but they'd leveraged themselves into a corner chasing acquisitions like souvenirs. By the time we got involved, they needed serious capital and new leadership. We structured the deal carefully. $2.1 billion from Horizon, a new CEO with operational experience, and governance reforms to prevent another acquisition spree. But there was one more thing. A clause everyone skimmed past because it looked like legal wallpaper. I'd insisted on it after a previous deal went sideways when a chairman's public meltdown became our reputational nightmare. We called it the conduct integrity provision. Simple terms. If documented conduct by senior leadership materially harmed the company's reputation during negotiations, we could withdraw our capital immediately. That clause wasn't theoretical. 3 years earlier, we'd committed $850 million to a regional energy infrastructure firm. I trusted their leadership team. I let my partner handle most of the final negotiations. 2 days before closing, a video surfaced. The chairman berating a field supervisor in front of an entire safety meeting, calling him worthless trash, laughing while others laughed along. We closed anyway. Biggest mistake I ever made in this business. Within 6 months, that clip was everywhere. Union negotiations, regulatory hearings, journalist investigations. We got our return eventually, but the reputational cleanup cost us more than the profit was worth. I promised myself it wouldn't happen again. That's why I insisted on attending the Thornfield merger meeting in person. I wanted to see how they behaved when they thought the cameras were just for show. I wanted them to see me. They had a different idea about who I was. The invitation came through official channels, formal email, formal agenda, board strategy session and merger completion ceremony. Location: Thornfield Energy Headquarters, Houston campus. The attendee list included board members, the incoming CEO, senior executives, and one line that caught my attention: Horizon Capital Representative TBD. Not my name, not my title, just TBD, to be determined. My partner Patricia asked if I wanted to send a VP instead. That's what they're expecting anyway, she said. I told her no. I delegated once before and learned my lesson. The morning flight to Houston gave me time to think. This wasn't just about $2.1 billion. It was about whether we could trust Thornfield's leadership to handle pressure without turning toxic. The energy sector is brutal. Regulatory scrutiny, environmental challenges, workforce tensions. If they couldn't show basic respect in a controlled boardroom setting, how would they handle real crisis? Thornfield's corporate campus looked like every other energy company's headquarters: glass, steel, and screens displaying stock prices and promotional videos. The receptionist gave me the standard welcome. When I told her my name, she paused just long enough to let me know something was off. "Someone from investor relations will come down," she said. Investor relations, not the board office. They'd already decided what level I belonged on. Lisa Hernandez appeared a few minutes later. Sharp suit, practiced smile, the kind of escort they send for people they need to manage rather than impress. We made small talk in the elevator. She asked about my flight. I asked about the mood upstairs. Eager and anxious, she said, which told me more than she probably intended. The executive floor was all soft carpet and framed photos. Past CEOs shaking hands with politicians, cutting ribbons, standing in front of facilities they'd since sold off. Success stories that weren't quite as successful as they looked. The boardroom was corporate catalog perfection. Long table, leather chairs, wall of glass overlooking Houston, screens ready for slides, and in the corner, red roses with white baby's breath. The same arrangement Horizon had been invoiced for when we agreed to sponsor the event's decor. They asked me to bring those in. I said, nodding toward the flowers. Lisa handed them to me. "Optics," she said quietly. "They wanted to look warm. Winston Thornfield was already seated at the head of the table when I walked in. Early 60s, expensive suit, the kind of smile that comes from decades of getting his way. We'd met briefly during due diligence. 7 minutes of conversation. Long enough for me to read him, not long enough for him to remember my face. A few other people were scattered around the table. Board members, Adrian Walsh flipping through a presentation deck, communication staff setting up the live stream. The red recording light blinked on as soon as I entered. Perfect, Winston said, seeing the flowers first. Set those on the sideboard. I can hold them, I replied. They were sent to me. He frowned slightly, then waved it off. We'd be starting shortly, he said. No one introduced me. No one asked my name. They saw roses in my hands, no nameplate at my spot, no familiar face from their usual banking rotation, and made their assumptions. Support staff, decoration, someone to fill a chair for the cameras. I walked around to where Adrian sat. He looked tired, the kind of tired that comes from weeks of media training and stakeholder meetings. When I approached with my hand extended, ready to welcome him properly to Thornfield, Winston saw his opportunity. He turned toward us, lifted his microphone, and delivered his line with perfect timing. I don't shake hands with low-level employees. The room's reaction told me everything I needed to know about Thornfield's culture. Board members snickered. Staff grinned behind folders. Adrian looked away rather than correct his new chairman. They thought public humiliation was entertaining. I placed the roses on the table and took my unmarked seat at the far end. Let them think they'd won. Let them start their presentation about strategic partnerships and aligned leadership. I'd heard enough corporate speak to know when it was genuine and when it was performance art. Winston launched into his opening remarks. Historic partnership, strategic capital, long-term shareholder value, standard merger ceremony language. He talked about Horizon's commitment without mentioning our name. He discussed governance reforms without acknowledging the conduct clause. He certainly didn't mention that the man he'd just insulted controlled whether any of this actually happened. As the second slide appeared, transaction overview, I decided it was time to clarify things. Before you go further, I said, cutting through his momentum, there's one thing you should know. Winston's head turned slowly, like I'd interrupted a church service. We're not taking input from staff during this session, he said. You can give your notes to investor relations afterward. I met his eyes. If you're refusing to shake my hand, then by tomorrow morning, $2.1 billion will no longer be part of this deal. Real boardrooms don't gasp. They go silent. Completely, utterly silent. Phones stopped moving. Pens stopped clicking. Then someone forced a laugh, trying to snap the room back to script. That's enough drama, a board member said. Let's stay focused. Winston's smile returned, but thinner now. Take a seat and save the theatrics. Capital is being handled. I am capital, I replied. That's when things got interesting, because the power in that room wasn't where they thought it was, and they were about to find out exactly what that meant for their carefully planned merger ceremony. They tried to carry on like nothing had changed. That's what people do when they don't believe consequences are real yet. Winston turned back to his presentation. Let's hear from finance, he said, trying to regain control of his narrative. Rachel Mitchell, the CFO, cleared her throat and launched into her section. Debt schedules, refinancing plans, projected cash flow with and without Horizon's commitment. She was good at her job, precise and thorough. But her entire presentation was built on one fundamental assumption, that the capital would be there because they wanted it there, not because they'd earned it. Halfway through her slides, I shifted the roses from the table to the floor. They were blocking my view of the screen. Winston noticed immediately. You can leave those outside, he said, not bothering to hide his irritation. They're distracting. I'll keep them here, I replied. They were sent under my name. That wasn't a suggestion, he said. They stay, I said. A few heads turned. Adrian looked up for the first time since the meeting began, eyes moving between Winston and me like he was finally realizing this wasn't standard merger ceremony protocol. We're not here to debate decor, Winston said, sarcasm dripping. We're here to finalize authority. Authority requires clarity, I replied. That earned me several narrowed stares. And who exactly are you here for? Winston asked, his patience clearly wearing thin. I'm here for the capital, I said. He gave a dismissive snort. That's being handled. Thank you. At the far end of the table, Rachel glanced at her notes, then at me. She hesitated. Before we move on, she said carefully, we still haven't confirmed final sign-off from the capital provider. Legal will handle it, Winston snapped. We've been over this. With respect, Rachel said, the release requires direct confirmation. It's not a rubber stamp. She looked at me again, just for a second. Winston followed her gaze like he was tracking something he didn't quite understand yet. From legal, he said, from the Capitol controller, Rachel corrected quietly. The room shifted, subtle movements, chairs adjusting, pens pausing, attention focusing. I met Winston's stare directly. That would be me, I said. For a moment, he just looked at me, really looked. Not at the roses, not at where I was sitting, but at my face, like he was seeing me for the first time. You're saying you control the funds? He asked slowly. I'm saying I'm the managing partner at Horizon Capital authorized to release them, I replied. A board member farther down let out a small scoff. You, he said, like the idea was absurd. Yes, I answered. Adrian leaned forward, finally engaging. How much authority are we talking about over the total commitment? I said. All of it. The silence was thicker now, uncomfortable. Horizon's tranche accounts for the largest portion of this structure, I continued. Without it, the remaining commitments can't proceed as designed. Some won't proceed at all. That's not what we were told, Winston said. But his voice had lost some of its edge. That's because you never asked, I replied. Rachel nodded once, confirming what everyone was starting to understand. Lawrence is listed as the sole signatory on the primary capital agreements. Winston straightened in his chair, trying to recover. Then perhaps we should restart properly, he said. Now that roles are clear, if you'd like, I said. But it was too late for restarts. The power dynamic had shifted, and everyone in the room knew it. They just didn't know how quickly it was about to flip completely. The conduct clause came up because Rachel wouldn't let it disappear. As Winston tried to push back into his presentation, she tapped her folder. There is one item we still need to acknowledge, she said. Winston didn't look at her. We've acknowledged everything. We've been reviewing this for months. The conduct provision, Rachel said. That got everyone's attention. Board members started flipping through documents. This one, a director said, reading from his copy, reputational conduct, capital withdrawal rights. Adrian leaned forward. What exactly does it say? It ties capital deployment to reputational integrity during negotiations. Rachel explained. Any documented conduct that materially harms standing allows for immediate withdrawal. She didn't look at me when she said it. Another board member found the relevance section. It doesn't require intent, he said. Just impact and documentation. This was boilerplate. Winston snapped. We put that in everything. It was revised. Rachel said quietly. Horizon requested specific language. At my insistence, I added. Winston turned to me with something approaching weariness now. You were concerned about optics. I was concerned about behavior, I said. He scoffed, but it sounded forced. This is turning into a distraction. We're talking about hypotheticals. Nobody's misbehaving. A director looked up toward the camera mounted in the corner. This meeting is being recorded, he pointed out. For transparency, Winston said sharply. Yes, I agreed. For transparency, that was the moment he lost control of the narrative completely. When the recess was called 10 minutes later, everyone moved fast. People wanted out of that room. The electricity was wrong, charged with something nobody quite understood yet. 10 minutes, Winston announced. We'll reconvene and wrap this. I stayed seated as the room emptied, watching who left first, who lingered, who was already on their phones. Winston walked past, talking to someone about posturing and calming him down. He didn't bother to lower his voice. Rachel approached me as I stood to leave. Lawrence, we should talk before we go back in. Not now, I said. She nodded. Understood. I found a quiet alcove near the elevators and pulled out my phone. One number, no hesitation. Patricia picked up on the second ring. Yeah, activate the withdrawal, I said. Effective immediately. Long pause. All of it. All of it. Reason code. Conduct during negotiations. Documentation available. Understood. We'll execute now. You sure? Yes. The line went dead. I put the phone away and stood there for a moment. My heart rate was settling, not spiking. The thing about lines is simple. If you don't act when they're crossed, they were never really lines. They were suggestions. I don't deal in suggestions. When I walked back into the boardroom, the red recording light was still on. The room was trying hard to pretend nothing had shifted. Chairs pushed back in. Water poured. Voices carefully controlled. Winston looked up as I took my seat. We'll resume now, he said, forcing authority back into his voice. Let's keep this focused. I placed my phone face down on the table. Didn't need to touch it. The deed was done. The presentation came back on screen, projections, charts, timelines, all of them built on an assumption that was already gone. On this slide, Rachel began, "You can see the liquidity runway with the horizon commitment." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Her expression changed in real time, color draining from her face like someone had pulled a plug. Another phone buzzed, then another. A low, asynchronous chorus spreading around the table. "Let's silence devices," Winston said sharply. "We're mid-meeting." Rachel didn't move to silence hers. She stared at her screen as a second notification landed. "The primary tranche," she said quietly. "It's been withdrawn." You could feel the room flinch internally. "Withdrawn how?" Winston demanded. "We're in the middle of closing." "Executed," Rachel said. "Confirmed. Full amount. 2.1 billion. "That's not possible," a director protested. "We have timelines." "We had timelines," Rachel corrected. Adrian looked directly at me. "Did you do this?" "Yes," I said. "You can't just pull that kind of capital," Winston said, standing now. "You signed agreements." "We signed agreements. The clause allows it," I said calmly. "You ensured the conditions were met." "This is unacceptable," he said. "You will reverse it now." "There's nothing to reverse. It's done." "You don't get to decide that. This board does." "The board doesn't own Horizon's money," I replied. "You were being given access to it under conditions. You violated them on camera. Phones weren't just buzzing with initial alerts anymore. They were ringing. Assistants, banks, external investors, trading desks. Someone near the middle of the table covered his mic and said, "Pre-market indicators are reacting. How bad?" Another asked, "Double digits down." Adrian ran a hand over his face. "You're comfortable with this? Letting everything crash?" "This didn't crash because I withdrew," I said. "It cracked because your chairman decided humiliating someone on camera was more important than protecting the company he's supposed to steward." Winston slammed his hand on the table. "The meeting is suspended." "No," the lead independent director said firmly. "It isn't. We're obligated to address governance now. You're not removing me over one misinterpreted moment," Winston said. "This isn't one moment," the director replied. "It's a pattern, and now it has a price tag." The cameras kept rolling. No one turned them off. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they knew it was too late. What happened next wasn't dramatic. Boards don't stage coups like in movies. They follow procedure. Call emergency sessions, reference bylaws, make motions, vote. But underneath the formal language, something simpler was happening: self-preservation. They'd watched their chairman publicly humiliate the person whose capital they needed most. They'd watched him do it on live stream. They'd watched him double down when confronted. Now they were watching the immediate financial consequences. Within an hour, Winston was placed on administrative leave. Adrian's appointment was suspended pending review. A committee was formed to attempt damage control with capital partners. They tried to bring me into that conversation. "We can find a path forward," the lead director said in a smaller conference room afterward. "Concessions, clarifications, joint statements." "There isn't a path forward," I said. "We can restructure governance," he insisted. "New covenants, direct oversight from Horizon." I shook my head. "This isn't about structures. It's about culture. You built an environment where your chairman thought he could say what he said and everyone would laugh along. I'm not funding that." "You're walking away from a very lucrative deal," he pointed out. "I'm walking away from a chronic headache," I replied. "Is there anything we can say to change your mind?" "No." He exhaled slowly. "Then I suppose we thank you for the consideration thus far," he said, slipping into formal language like armor. "You don't need to thank me," I said. "Just learn from it, or don't. But I won't be paying to find out which." The story hit financial media by afternoon. Headlines focused on Thornfield. Private equity firm withdraws 2.1 B amid governance concerns. Board chair under fire after internal footage surfaces. Merger collapses following investor walkout. I watched one segment muted in the airport lounge. Two analysts debated whether investor activism had gone too far. "It's just a comment," one said. "People are too sensitive." The other replied, "It's a comment that cost them $2.1 billion. That's not sensitivity, that's accountability." I didn't need the sound. I'd been there when the line was spoken and when the consequences landed. Back at Horizon, my partners were waiting. We didn't celebrate. We debriefed. What did we learn? Patricia asked. That principles have a price, I said. And sometimes you have to pay it. The clause worked, she pointed out. It only works if you enforce it, I replied. We spent that afternoon sketching out our next fund. Smarter due diligence, clearer expectations. Conduct clauses that weren't just legal wallpaper, but actual guardrails. A week later, a journalist called. People want to understand why you walked away from such a large deal, she said. They already understand, I said. They saw it happen. Any lessons for other executives? Yes. Respect isn't something you show after a deal is signed. It's the cost of entry to the conversation. If you can't manage basic human decency when cameras are rolling, you won't get the chance to prove you can do it when they're not. Can we quote you on that? Use my name, I said. Use it correctly. That evening, I sat in my home office thinking about my father's words. Money doesn't change people. It just makes it easier to see who they really are. That day in Houston, Winston Thornfield showed everyone exactly who he was. He thought respect was optional, humiliation was entertaining, and power meant never having to say you're sorry. He learned differently, so did his board. So did anyone else who watched that footage later. Sometimes the most expensive lessons are the most valuable ones, not for the people who pay the price, but for everyone who's watching. I held my hand out to greet a new CEO. The chairman decided that was beneath him. He thought the laugh was cheap. Turned out it was priced at $2.1 billion. Some bridges you burn, others you blow up. The trick is knowing which ones are worth the dynamite. Power isn't about the title on your business card or the size of your office. It's about having the courage to walk away from anything that compromises your principles, even when it costs you millions. In business, as in life, people will always test your boundaries to see what they can get away with. The moment you fail that test, you've taught them exactly how little you're worth. Thanks for listening.